Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a look at the next iteration of incredible Minecraft mods that bring absolutely jaw-dropping visuals by providing render distances that just aren't normally possible, specifically by combining said distant terrain with shaders. And the first mod to accomplish this to widespread applause is Distant Horizons. And I'd say this has to be one of the most, important features to come out in a mod in a very long time. I mean, when videos first began popping up showcasing this, people genuinely couldn't believe it. Because, we'd seen like animations and stuff in the past showing Minecraft looking like this, but it was never real. And then Distant Horizons went ahead and turned this feature into reality. And now, as of a few months ago, another mod has emerged providing this feature, and it is a very strong contender. So the mod we're talking about specifically is called Voxy, and on the surface it provides more or less the same features as Distant Horizons. However, they do have some pretty notable differences. For starters, and probably most importantly, Voxy has definitively more detailed distant terrain. And I will say the level of detail provided by Distant Horizons is usually more than adequate, especially during normal gameplay. However, if you stop and stare at distant terrain, especially if you were to, say, zoom in on it, it may end up breaking the illusion a little bit, particularly in the middle of the day hours when you're not getting that beautiful fog that arrives during the early morning or late evening, which does a great job of hiding the distant terrain's imperfections. With Voxy, however, this really isn't an issue. There is negligible quality drop-off within the distant chunks. Even if you zoom in, things look great. And it accomplishes this by dynamically adjusting the quality of distant terrain. You can see this happen in real time when you initially load in the chunks. And this is surprisingly a very quick process. It only takes a couple seconds to get things looking just about perfect. And it does the same thing when you zoom in on distant terrain. So again, even if you're very, very far away, you can still see minute details. And you may be wondering about performance, and I'd say on average, I get about 20 to 25% higher frame rate when using Distant Horizons compared to Voxy, which isn't insignificant. However, at least in my case, the performance is more than sufficient with either. RAM usage, on the other hand, seems to definitely favor Voxy, as Distant Horizons is kind of all over the place, whereas Voxy is very stable and smooth. And I do believe this partially comes down to the fact that, and I suppose this is one of the bigger downsides of Voxy, Distant Horizons generates its own chunks, whereas Voxy, you have to explore them, or use a mod like Chunky in order to pre-generate chunks. So when you load into a world with Distant Horizons, all you have to do is just set your preferred render distance, and it'll kind of just immediately start doing its thing. Whereas with Voxy, if you don't pre-generate your chunks, you're gonna have to do a lot of exploring in order to receive the benefits of this mod. So essentially, you absolutely should use something like Chunky in order to pre-generate chunks. And whether you're using Voxy or Distant Horizons, the optimal strategy in order to get the best performance is usually just loading into a world and allowing it to generate its chunks while you don't play for a little bit. This tends to lead to an overall smoother experience. And another area Voxy really excels is how quickly you can move through its chunks. In this little comparison, I'm moving as fast as I possibly can in spectator mode, and Voxy handles it with ease, whereas with Distant Horizons, after traveling for some time, it does begin to struggle. And this is in the exact same world, so for both mods, the chunks are already pre-generated. Is this a scenario you'll encounter in survival mode? Most likely not. It's fairly difficult to pick up this kind of speed, but this does a great job of showing just how fast Voxy is. Now, wrapping back around to what I said before, in the fact that Distant Horizons does generate its own chunks, with Voxy, this could theoretically lead to a problem where if you're an avid explorer and reach the edge of what you've pre-generated, there will be a very obvious end of the generated chunks, just a hard cutoff. With Distant Horizons, however, the chunks will continually generate as you explore. Another advantage Distant Horizons currently has is multiplayer support, and obviously this could be massive for some of you. With Voxy, the only way you'll be able to generate these distant chunks is by exploring, whereas Distant Horizons can share the generated chunks with connected players. A pretty huge feature, obviously. I mean, if you're going to be playing multiplayer and want to have distant chunks, Distant Horizons is your best bet right now. You could theoretically get Voxy working on a server if whoever generates the chunks shares the cache file with everyone that's connecting, but this is going to be a bit of a hassle, certainly not plug and play. Also worth pointing out, Distant Horizons supports a lot more versions than Voxy does, and because this feature is simply just older within Distant Horizons, it has a lot more shader support as of now. There is a website that lists the current shaders which support Voxy. I'll be sure to leave a link for that, and as of now, a lot of these shaders require you to get specific versions off of, say, GitHub or something. I do assume the supported shaders will grow pretty quickly, however, the same thing did happen with Distant Horizons. And there is one shader specifically from this list I want to show off a little bit, and this is the Eclipse shader. I had never seen the shader before, I discovered it from this list, and it provides some very interesting features, which you may have noticed in the thumbnail for this video. Most notably, a feature called shader grass. I have never seen grass that looks like this in Minecraft before. Never. And I absolutely love it. It's also incredibly cursed, that's for sure. It almost reminds me of grass you'd see in like Valheim or something. Unfortunately, it doesn't replace tall grass, however, so that will definitely stick out. There's also shader snow, which will begin to build up on blocks while it's snowing. Looks pretty fantastic as well, along with water wave simulation, so you can actually see how you affect the surface of water. Overall, a really cool shader, and it's built off of Bliss, which is arguably the best shader available for these distant terrain mods. So experimental features aside, it's worth using regardless. Anyway, back to focusing on Voxy. The settings it provides are significantly simpler than what you find within Distant Horizons, and this could be a pro or a con depending on who you are. Pretty much the only setting within these 2 pages 99% of people are going to be touching is the render distance. And even then, the number it starts on, it being 512 chunks, is more than adequate. Distant Horizons, on the other hand, has a multitude of pages to go through, and there's actually some pretty important settings you can find buried within. You can change the quality of the generated LODs, how much of your CPU is being utilized, and a ton of other settings for debugging and such. Again, features most people probably don't need, but they are available. Also worth mentioning, Distant Horizons has support for both Forge and Fabric, whereas Voxy is only available for Fabric as of now. So I guess if you want to play Forge mods, you don't even have to make the choice. Overall, 2 genuinely unbelievable mods. If you were to show either of these to someone 10 years ago, there's practically no chance someone would even think it's real, or at the very least, they'd be very skeptical of the performance. I mean, it's pretty insane that these don't really affect your frame rate all that much. If you can run a shader, you can probably throw one of these on top of it. So yeah, major props to both of the developers. They've each created something absolutely phenomenal and certainly deserve your support, so go ahead and give these mods a try. And that will just about do it for this video. However, there is one last thing that is very important and I must mention. Hytale is finally here. I'm sure all of you are already well aware of this, but hey, it's been a very long time. I made a few videos of turning Minecraft into Hytale over 7 years ago, and after all the delays and such, I remembered thinking, wow, this game is never really gonna come out, is it? And then it got canceled, but now it's actually available. So I plan on releasing a video for it soon. It's been a long time coming. I also still plan on releasing a video for Vintage Story, in case any of you are wondering. And yeah, if you guys would like to check out the mods, they'll be in the description below, along with a website that shows all the shaders currently compatible with Voxy. And anyways, if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and until next time, thanks for watching.